Baldurs Gate 3, it is not selling because it's turn-based, okay? People saying that, you're completely dishonest. It's completely bullshit, okay? This game could have had FF16's combat system, but with this thing, right, and the same result. People are buying it because they like Baldur's Gate and because they like the D&D. They're not buying it because they're liking the turn element. They are buying it because you can kill your companions, because you can abandon people, because you can, and all this stuff. People are not buying it because they're so much in love with the turn-based combat system. 16, great combat system, but what it lacks, right, is what Baldur's Gate 3 has. Actual consequences. If you do a mistake, you will pay with your life, you know what I mean? It's not about being turn-based or real-time. It's about Final Fantasy and similar games being like brain dead, right? Brain dead easy. That's the bigger difference, right? F16, yeah, it's brain dead too easy. It happens to be real time. But if they made a turn-based F16 that was as easy as 16 is, it still would have been brain dead. Are turn-based games dead? So I actually have a paper published about combat design in role-playing games. So hello everyone, if you're new here to the channel, my name is Ronden and I have been a game developer for about 15 or so years, and my expertise is primarily of course with combat game design, especially with role-playing games. Both we have papers on that, 2 papers on combat design, and also my thesis was about combat design in role-playing games. So I'll talk about, of course, the FF16 versus here then Baldur's Gate 3 debate, right? And our turn-based game dead or not. And also, I just beat F16 last week. Got everything in it, all trust everything, so it's very, very fresh in my mind. So like the video, guys, subscribe, press that like button, and here it helps out, and let's talk about combat design. Okay, let me just first break down the topics, right, that I will discuss in this video. So we have, just generally speaking, right, the combat design here of Baldur's Gate 3, the combat design of course, F16 then. The actual topic, which I feel is very annoying, is oh, F16 is supposed to be turn-based, like the previous FF games, which they weren't. That's my biggest topic, honestly. F15 is also real-time and so on, right? 13, I have 12 1 minute shirt here, also real-time. So I was like, that's the topic I want to express first. I'm like, wait, but that isn't even real-time for the last 20 years. And then, of course, generally comparing them. And also, is actually Baldur's Gate 3, this game, like selling on its combat design? Because I like the game a lot. I like it, it's a great game. But is it actually the combat design selling it? Let's talk about it. Okay. So first of all, we have to discuss, is Final Fantasy supposed to be turn-based or not, right? Or Square Enix wrong so on, right? So as I mentioned earlier, right, I'm sitting here in my FF12 shirt I made myself, right? One of my favorite fantasy games. I'm a huge fan of the developers in that game, right? You know, Yasubi Matsune is alright. I love Vagrant Story, etc. But FF10 is the last turn-based game in the series. Basically, right? I'm really honestly tired of discussion about FF16 not being turn-based, because it just doesn't make any sense. People saying that, oh, it's not fantasy anymore, it's Taylor, blah blah blah. It hasn't been turn-based since FF10, okay? This is the last real turn-based FF game. 11 is a more precise or whatever, right? 12, that close I have over here. 12 is, you know, like, it's ought to be a real-time-ish, right? You're controlling one character or two, or you can basically code the other characters. Again, I love 12. As a kid, I learned basically coding, right? I wrote if statements, so you could just beat the game by just not playing it. 13 has what's called auto-D system, the auto-B system. Also not turn-based, right? And of course 15, extremely not turn-based, you're flipping around everywhere. And honestly, 16 is more turn-based than 15 is, because at least in 16 you have more like actual cooldowns and it's more structured, right? 15, I think, has the worst comp system of all FF games, and it's very just flimsy turn, you know, real time. It's so not turn-based. So I think that the whole discussion itself is really silly. People are acting like 16 is the last, should have been the last bastion or something of turn-based. And I'm like, but it hasn't been turn-based for years. Another point of course is that Final Fantasy games, generally speaking, have not been turn-based almost ever, except 10, right? Because 7, 8, 9 have auto-B system, which is like pseudo turn-based, right? So they're not like turn-based either, for that matter. Another thing we should bring up here is that Japanese games tend to be a lot more experimental when it comes to the actual combat, right? So I've written about this several times in my life, about the classic, you know, West versus East, right? And this is classic saying from one of the BioWare's leads. He was like, well, no one's ever gonna buy our Eastern game again. JRPG sucks. And then BioWare basically almost went bankrupt and he was fired or whatever. It's hilarious. No, but the thing is that East versus West, right? It's been a big topic for a long years. But the thing is that the East games then, or Japanese role-playing games, has always had way more experimental combat, right? These games has always been a lot more, what if you make it like pseudo-real time? What if you can do this thing? What if you can freeze the time and so on, right? Western games tend to have more or less the same combat system, right? There are two different, I guess, versions. You either have the Diablo hack and slash action RPG, or you have like Baldur's Gate 3, right? The more turn-based D&D RPG. Those are basically two different combat systems of Western RPGs, I would say, generally speaking here, where Japanese games are way more crazy than RPGs, right? This here is also Fate, which is called pseudo-real-time, where you do action commands in turn-based, basically, right? And then the character are fighting in real time after when executing it, and during the real-time moment, you can then control stuff during it as well. So it's like it's both turn-based and real-time or something. It's hard to explain. A very good game in that sense. The storyline is kind of whatever. But from an actual combat system, this is actually one of my favorite role-playing games of all time. I bet on 3 years, so I bring it up here because it is one of the most interesting combat design. And honestly, if I was going to say immediately, right, I think that Japanese developers are 100 times better than Western developers when it comes to actual innovative combat systems, right? Because, like I said, the West have basically two systems, right? It's either turn-based or hack and slash real-time with some altercation, right? Where Japanese guys are just crazy. They have made like 500 different combat systems over the years. Some of them pretty terrible and some way better. And 16, I guess, top of soon here, is like not the best Final Fantasy. I would say it's 13 from combat system. But it is different at least. It's Devil May Cry issues. And, at least it's something different, right? Yeah. So, it's unique at least, right? To some extent. But anyway, so that's kind of like, yeah, okay. Like, they aren't even turn-based. Now, let's discuss the common topic, right? People argue for now then. Oh, Baldur's Gate is selling massively amount of money or whatever, right? 16 was wrong or whatever. So let's talk about and more compared. Let's zoom in here a bit in Baldur's Gate, right? And, it follows a very classic Western RPG, right? You got a bunch of moves. You got like a UI bar, World of Warcraft style, a lot of abilities, is tool tips, you got, I'm playing a paladin, my main character, right? You got a bunch of skills, you got the lay on hand, you got different races, and so on. So one thing, right, immediately the Baldur's Gate does is that your abilities are, of course, based on your class, but also your race, right? So I'm playing a paladin, you have different devotions. I pick one specific devotion, so I get, specific healings for that, and so on. So it's a lot about your character building, right? Your talent tree or whatever, or your whatever, right? And that stuff really affects your character. And that's good. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm saying that's really lies a lot on, right? For example, 16 has a pretty terrible, actually, development system. You basically pick your skills the current playing with. You can combine skills, but it doesn't really matter. You can respec immediately, yeah. So it's very different in that sense, right? But this game here, Baldur's Gate, it is very, very, traditional. So I mentioned, yeah, it's a D&D game. And what I want to bring up here, before you get into 16, talking about should it be turn-based or not. So, slight spoiler here, but you can kill your companions, right? So again, this is a minor spoiler, but really isn't a big spoiler, I think, honestly. Is that, so you have a vampire in your party, right? And I'm playing a paladin. He's trying to suck my blood, right? Now you have options in the game. You can feel sorry for him and so on. But I'm playing a paladin, and I'm RPing, okay? So I'm just like, F you. I roll my die, and I'm like, no, man, you stinking vampire! And I kill him. So, and I killed this guy, right? I freaking murdered my companion, right? Because I'm a paladin, so screw you, vampire, right? But my point, of course, is that Baldur's Gate 3, it is not selling because it's turn-based, okay? People saying that, you're completely dishonest. It's completely bullshit, okay? This game could have had FF16's combat system, but with this thing, right, and the same result. People are buying it because they like Baldur's Gate and because they like the D&D. They're not buying it because they're liking the turn element. They are buying it because you can kill your companions, because you can abandon people, because you can, and all this stuff. People are not buying it because they're so much in love with the turn-based combat system. I'm not saying, for that matter, that the system is bad, okay? I'm enjoying, and I'm playing the game on the hard difficulty, right? So I'm enjoying it, I'm dying at the retry, I'm enjoying it. But, again, I am liking this game because I can kill my companions. I'm not liking it because it's a turn-based game. And now afterwards, my other companions are like, yeah, you should have killed him earlier. They're like, yeah, hate that guy. You know what I mean? This is why I'm playing the game, right? And I really want to stress on this point, right? Again, I don't dislike Baldur's Gate 3 combat system. I think it's fairly good. The point again is that, but it doesn't really matter though. Come on, Jesus Christ, man. If it was real time, or even wasn't real, let's say that Baldur's Gate 3, right, had FF16's combat system with way more VFX, cooler graphics, combining different gods or whatever, right? Honestly, it would be a much better game, okay? Because the combat system in Baldur's Gate 3 is not super good. It's good, but the combat system in ST is way more enjoyable. It really is. If I could combine them two, right, it would be a very different game, but I'll get a point. If I could combine this more open world, I could kill my companion, you have different options, right? But with 16 system, that would be a better game. Straight up, it would be a better game. But this game was playable as well. And just to point out here, right, from a developer standpoint, there's obviously two very different things, right? First of all, the budget, of course, is very different. I've seen a made bigger game, right? Very AAA, right? Of course it is. But if you know the budget, obviously, which is very common for the Western RPGs, as I mentioned earlier, they're spending more time, right, on this thing. Spending more time on developing different companions and the trees and this thing and different paths. And they're spending way more of their developers, right, on, you know, this stuff, right? Where in Japan, it's like we're spending half our budget on making a crazy new combo system, right? You think that, as again, I mentioned earlier, Essence of Fate, that game is crazy, right? That has an amazing combo system for 3 days. But the thing is, as I work in the industry, right, those guys, they have like, you know, they have like half their staff is like, you know, designers for designing that, right? Where on this studio instead, half the staff is like designing companion stuff, you know, and then you have to think about what the priority is, right? Like, again, Baldur's Gate combat system, but also it isn't that fantastic. I mean, it does the job right, you know, it's turn-based, different abilities, different buffs or whatever, but I have seen much better turn-based games, okay? Not just from Western, but especially from Japan. The Skya games, you know, I'm a big fan of Nipponichi games, you know, so it's not the best strategy game at all, okay? Not for a second. Again, not saying it's bad, I'm saying that it's better than average, but it's not the best, right? But what the game is really fun with is, of course, the exploration, right? Finding new characters, you know, should I kill people? There's a scene with a windmill, you can save a guy, 2 buttons, I pressed the wrong button, it died. I was like, whatever. And when I play this game, I never reload, you know. No, I'm playing RP, right? I never reload, because if I die, I have to reload. But if I don't die, I'm not playing permanently. I'm just like, okay, let's keep going, right? So you can save this guy at the windmill, but I pressed the wrong button, so he died instead. And I was like, that shit happens, you gotta keep going, you know what I mean? So I love that, right? My main point, again, as I mentioned earlier, is that no one is buying Baldur's Gate because it's turn-based. That doesn't mean that it's a bad game, or that I don't like turn-based. I'll talk about it now here. But I just want to say that, let's be honest here, no one is buying Baldur's Gate 3 because it's turn-based. You're buying it because you can kill your companion. That's what you're buying it for. Let's just be freaking real here. Because in the end, this thing works, right? But it's the D&D elements, right? It's the exploration, it's the companion we're after. That being said, though, one thing I will say that I really do enjoy this game, though, which I hate the F16. You comment that now, I've seen comments in here, which I hate the game, it's so easy, though, yeah. 16 is so easy, even on Final Fantasy mode, even on hard mode, it's way too easy. I struggle with one trial, the wind one, on hardest mode, because that trial is freaking annoying, man. You have to just lame it out. But that game is far too easy, right? One thing I really enjoy with this game, is to be very clear here, is that I'm dying, right? Like, we're dying right now. I walked in here, we're gonna die now. Also, I didn't really focus so much, I just talked when I'm playing it. But, so as an example, right? If you do a single mistake in this game, I am playing it on hard difficulty, of course, but you will die, you know. You have to go in and actually think about, oh, what happens if, you know, this thing happens, or what happened, no, out of movement, or shit, like, I'm gonna get killed now, you know? So I want to review here about the actual combat design of it, right, a little bit, and then also talk about it, yeah, speaking, compared to Baldur's Gate, right, so compared to beat the game and so on. The thing is that this combat design is actually really good. I love it, you know, you can expect different things, right, different combos and so on, and of course it's crazy flashing, everything exploding, it's epilepsy all the time, baby. But seriously, this combat system has been very, very fun to play. It's very fun, but it was stuff. One thing that I am pretty good is Odin, okay? Everyone playing about Odin, I love Odin, man. You do the Santescu combo. It's like my favorite, man. You beat them up easily. I thought this combo where you play Odin, and you summon Ramu's lightning crystal, and you're doing the combo on it, and then you get like infinite damage. I don't know, but it's a lot of fun stuff you can do in the game, right? The problem though with this game, straight up, is unfortunately like every goddamn other FF game I've played in the last years, is it's far too easy. 15, same thing, you just button mash everything through it, yeah. And even if you play on hard mode and everything just dies. And I think that 16 it struggles exactly like F7 Remake did as well, where the combo system and the core of it, how it flows, how you can do combos, how you can combine different abilities, everything, all that feels really good, it's really fun, but all the enemies are like 20 levels too low or something. Yeah, it's like a really weird feeling. Like I had a friend that wrote to me that, he's like, yeah, but after the dragon, so the dragon is level 50, where you're like 38 on that. Dragon is 50, and he's way higher level than you. He's a hard fight in the game. And after you beat the dragon, you have, for example, King Behemoth left and so on. And I felt that too, it didn't make sense to me. King Behemoth is like level 48 for some reason, even he's the same S rank as the dragon, and you also rounded level down, but you faced him. Like, why? Why isn't King Behemoth level 64, right? So, the issue with this game is, unfortunately, with all of the games, while the combat system is really great and the philosophy and so on, it's very far too easy, right? It's very unfortunate. That's a summary of it. But yeah, the good part is that you're combining stuff, right? You have a lot of freedom to it. Every different summoning have different, like a basic instruction for them, like either pulling in, teleporting, blocking, whatever, right? And you can really have a lot of fun with it. And the trials, though, are showing you some bad design, okay? For example, in the wind trial, the worst by far of them, you can't really combine the abilities correctly. Basically, the wind trial shows you terrible game design because you have to, like, lame it out by doing the weakest combo to get more time. If you do the best combo, you get less time because you don't get time, you just kill all the enemies. And it's a time trial, but killing the enemies quickly is bad because it's better playing slowly and like doing abusing thing to get time. So there's that kind of issue with it, and that I feel has been a common issue. Like I said, F7 and so on too, right? Where Square, they are doing these really interesting systems, but it's like the actual meta around it are bad, The quests aren't hard enough for them, or the quests are weirdly like, oh, you have to do this combo instead of the combo you should do, whatever. Like, it's ineffective around them, right? Because all the quest bits in this game is terrible. It's really weird, yeah. I might make on the video 16 later, right? But 16 combo system is really great. I keep saying it's great, but it's like all the side quests are just terrible. I don't know what to tell you guys. Like, some side quests, get me wrong here, are amazing. With Torga, with Jill, Joshua. So some side quests are very emotional and they give you a lot of character depth and so on. So they're really great, right? But these are not like there's not the gameplay side quests, right? So you have two different side quests. You have the ones that are very focused on the characters, right? Let's say your girlfriend Jill, right? So you're gonna date with her and you kiss her and you have probably sex or whatever off screen, yeah. It's like really, really like into that, right? Yeah. So it's very, very like, okay, this side quest matters a lot, right, in the game. And then she joins the party and all this stuff, whatever. It's really, really good. But the next side quest is like, go and fetch me, a phoenix down or something. Yeah, go and get me a feather or something. And then you have to fight like 5 goons, and the quest is done, right? And like probably 2/3 of the quest are those quests, which is just like, go and get me 10 ores, right? And all those quests are terrible, honestly, in the game. Not because they are just fetch quests, sure, whatever, but because they're so easy. Right? Because you go in there and you're like, burn fire! And they die immediately. You basically can one-shot everything. Honestly, that's probably why I love Odin so much. Because when you get Odin, you can just one-shot those quests. Yeah, because Odin, you can save up his ultimate attack, Santescu. So you basically do one quest, right? Like, fetch me 5 ores. Kill that quest, right? With your combos, like Odin build up and so on. Do the next quest, right? Get me 5 feathers. You immediately do the Odin attack, and everyone dies, and the quest is done. So it spends you a lot of times. You save a lot of time using Odin. Trust me, Odin is the best guy to do quest lines. Yeah, you can just insta kill every side quest with Odin's ability. It's so good, man. So Odin, you get him last, but when you play the second playthrough, you can Odin all the time. You just immediately kill every quest line. So fast, man. But seriously, I just want to point it out. I love the combat design in this game. It feels really great. But it's so easy. Yeah, it's just like, it is the same thing F7 Remake. It's far too easy. F13 was much better when they actually had a very challenging hunts and so on. Yeah? But anyway, I bring it up, right, because this combat system is much better than Baldurs Gate 3. Baldurs Gate 3 is just a classic turn-based Western RPG, right? This is much better. I said earlier, if I can combine these games, I would much rather have that, right? I would have Baldur's Gates, much more interesting, like, companion system and so on, right? And then the fast would have been done this, it would be way better, right? Yeah. But also, as I mentioned earlier, the Baldurs basically plays in 2 different ways, right? This is developed this way, developed that way. They're very different games. That being said though, because of course I play every goddamn RPG ever, right? I want to point out, I'm not saying that turn-based games are dead, right? I'm saying that F16 is a much better system than Baldur's Gate 3 by a long shot. However, where I'm enjoying Baldur's Gate 3, right, because you die if you do mistake and so on, 16 completely lack any kind of issues with actual gameplay, right? So Baldur's Gate basically has everything that I lack in 16, right, from an actual like player choice. And I don't mean choice as in should I kill my friend or not, I mean choice as in if I do a mistake in the fight, I die, because 16 is basically impossible to lose fight 16, right? It's like, it's really weird, right? In Baldur's Gate, you enter a fight, and you're like, okay, I have to prepare. It's a hard fight. Maybe if I put a trap over it, maybe put some grease over it, you know, I can burn this guy or someone, yeah. It actually matters, player choice from an actual strategy matters so much more, right? But that is because 16 is like, it's like a baby mode, yeah. Because fantasy games used to be much harder. And if you play some of the other games, right, they are much more harder. And I think one thing though, I'll say the last Persona 5 is that Final Fantasy, the newer games, they lack one thing, and that is that the old games were also pretty easy, but their side bosses were very hard, right? Because it's kind of like the main story was easy in like 10, but then some of the hunts fight, some of the Mega Sisters, so on, they were really hard actually sometimes, depending on levels and so on. So it was like that thing kind of saved them from being too easy, right? Because they made the side content so hard, and that is completely gone in 15 and 16. Yeah, it's just so easy. 13 actually still kept that, with the side content, right, were very hard. Yeah, some of the fights were much harder than the actual main story. Well, I wasn't the hardest game ever, but it was quite hard actually. Like anti-matter bosses and so on, actually quite difficult the first time at least. So that's something that they completely, unfortunately, forgot to, right? Same thing in F7 Remake. But all that being said though, turn-based games of course are still alive and kicking, right? Persona 5, great example of a good turn-based game. Yakuza, of course, like a dragon, also a very good game. Played on both for Atlus, right? Sega Atlus, so on. Very good, both of them. So it's, but I only think that kind of fun enough because people really do make it into a West versus East thing, right? But I think that the East is also doing better turn-based games too, because again, I mean, I'm enjoying Baldur's Gate 3. It's turn-based and I'm enjoying it, but I think this game is a much better turn-based game. It's much more funnier, tag teaming out and so on, right? Shitty characters. So you can definitely make it happen. And for example, there is one game called Breath of Fire 5 or Breath of Fire Dragon's Quarter or whatever it's called. It's both 5, but it's like a weird subtitle. I think it's called Dragon's Quarter. Terrible game, honestly, terrible game. But that had a lot of the Western influence. You're in a dungeon, you put traps, you post meat for the enemies, all right. So there are a bunch of Japanese games that also, you know, tried to basically make the D&D. That's basically trying to make the D&D in Japan or whatever, right? But it failed everything else in that game. The combat system was the only good part of that game. Yeah, terrible storyline, terrible. Breath of Fire is a very old Japanese role-playing game series, which is very fluffy and very colorful, 1 to 4, about a dragon boy. And then in the 5th game, you're playing in like a, I don't know, dystopian black and gray catacombs, and it's completely, yeah, it's so different from the first game. It's completely flopped, and they never made a game for Capcom. They never made a game again. But anyway, so there are many examples, right, of good turn-based games. So I don't think it's that at all. I don't see who is saying that. And also, one of my favorite games this year is Octopath Traveler 2. I love that game. It's turn-based, right? Amazing game. Octopath Traveler 2 is like, seriously, probably my favorite game this year. But that game also is turn-based, but it's not really, like I said, I'm not loving it because of the combo system. I'm loving it because of the level design. I'm loving it because how it works in the system, how you move around. But you can see how that game is very similar to Baldur's Gate, actually, right? Baldur's Gate 3, because Octopath Traveler is all about, oh, you're in a village, you can trick this guy, you can seduce him, you can fool this guy, take his weapon, and so on, yeah. It's a lot about how you interact with NPCs, right, and so on, and that's, of course, very similar to Baldur's Gate 3. Now, Baldur's Gate 3 gives you more freedom how you interact with them, but Octopath Traveler 2 has a more direct, I'll say it, simplified system, it's better streamlined, so, you know, for better or worse, Octopath Traveler 2 makes it better sometimes, but also it's kind of fun in the Baldur's Gate you can steal stuff from people immediately and so on, yeah. So it's a little bit, you know, it's like, whatever, your point, they're actually more similar, right? And so I think that's something you have to bring up too. Every time people are like, oh, Square Enix, what do they hate the gamers for? Final Fantasy should be turn-based. I'm like, but they're also releasing like 20 other games every year, and like 5 of them are also turn-based. You can buy all the games from Square Enix and tend to be turn-based. But like I said earlier in the video though, the Fantasy hasn't been turn-based in like 20 years. I don't even get the content. I'm just like, have you played FF the last 20 years? The FF10 was the last one turn-based, you know? But anyway, I hope that's the video. The scatterbrain to some extent, but I know everything there is to know, right, about role-playing games. I can just bring up any example in my head, right, basically. But yeah, in conclusion, right, Baldurs Gate 3, great game, I'm loving it, but not because it's a turn-based system. That's the worst part of the game, honestly. There are better turn-based games, like Persona 5, much better system. And F16, great combat system, but what it lacks, right, is what Baldur's Gate 3 has, actual consequences, right? It lacking that if you die, if you do a mistake, you will pay with your life, you know what I mean? 16 would have been a much better game if you actually, you know, would actually lose a fight or something, because you don't win in that game, yeah. One thing I say lastly, I like 16 though, but what I'm saying is an issue with the game, right, is more simplified when you're playing the, what's it called, the cinematic fights, right? The actual boss fights in that game against different icons, different gods. Those, I have never lost a single one of those. You can't lose those fights. It's basically impossible. Yeah, they are basically just press one button, dodge, press one button. Yeah, it's like, it's very unfortunate. You have these like giant Kadyu fights, and I would love if they were actually hard. And they aren't hard even on hard mode either. But I mean, especially if you play the first playthrough, they're so incredibly easy. And that's just why. You just make them somewhat hard. They could be like twice as hard, and still would have been too easy. And I think it's very unfortunate that they basically like have turned off the brain. And that's probably, like I said, why some people really gravitate to Baldur's Gate 3, because Baldur's Gate 3 is like the opposite, right? Any mistake on hard mode in Baldur's Gate, you die immediately. So it's like opposite, right, of easy mode for fantasy. And that's probably where I am at more. It's not about being turn-based or real-time. It's about Final Fantasy and similar games being like brain-dead, right? Brain-dead easy. That's the bigger difference, right? F16, yeah, it's brain-dead too easy. It happens to be real-time. But if they made a turn-based F16 that was as easy as 16 is, it still would have been brain-dead, right? Baldur's Gate is a very complicated game where you fight the different characters and so on. It has to be turn-based, and it's much harder. But Baldur's Gate 3 could have been real-time, and if it kept the same difficulty, right, it would also be way less brain-dead. So 16's problem, or why some people don't like it, right, it's not because it's real-time, right? Because FF10 is a much harder game than 16, not because it's turn-based, but because it actually demands to think a little bit, because the bosses aren't in easy mode. And like I said many times in my life, but basically 16 is like every enemy is like 20 levels too low, right? Just that alone. Why is King Behemoth like lower level than you when you meet him? He's like the last hunter in the game. Why is he too low level for? Stuff like that, you know, doesn't make any sense in the game. It's just way too easy. And the real time is completely irrelevant. If real time or not. FF12, I almost showed here, right? FF12 is a much harder game than 16. They're both like real time. The real time or turn based isn't the issue of 16. It's the easy mode, brain dead difficulty curve that it lacks completely. Right? But anyway, hope this video. Please subscribe so then have a great day.